Well, yes, we've since been joined by Mr. Abraham Ogodo, who is a former editor with the Guardian newspapers. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so let's take a look at the list of those who have been screened. That happened yesterday, so quite a number, but they also intend to continue with that yesterday. So Uche Oga from Abia, Gosola Kwabio, Akwa Ibom, George Akome Benue, Ogbonaya Ono Ebonyi, Emeka Wanjuba of Imo, Olorun Nimbe Mamora, Lagos, Olamide Kon Adigbite Ogun, Adamu Bauchi, Rotimi Rivers, Sharon Ekaso, Anambra. So you expect the screening to continue today. Mr. Bodo, having looked at this screening, I know several things repeated themselves, but is this some of the same for you?
Of course, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. You know, those guys, they came with a lot of proclamations. We do this, we do that, and in the first place, the screening was not even thorough. They were not really drilled to the point. You could actually benchmark them 4 years ago. What was it that they promised? And now after 4 years, some of them are coming back. What are they coming back for? On the basis of what? Is it on the basis of the former proclamations? What have they manifested? You know, there is this thing people don't understand. Leadership is not about what you proclaim, it's about what you manifest. And so when they come and they still grandstand doing proclamation, it's almost like we are still in a campaign season. We're talking of governance, for God's sake. And so I have not really seen anything striking about the show they are putting up there.
You said the screening is not thorough.
Yes.
What's missing?
I don't know when somebody just walk into the chambers of the Senate and then you ask a few questions. Take, for instance, the screening of Akpabio. I didn't watch everything from the beginning, but at least I got to see when Akpabio came, and in his usual very expansive mood, he was just talking, almost clowning, and then the next thing, take a bath and go. Is that all?
That's because
he was a former senator. So is that how he should be? Because of a former, is that enough credentials? Is that enough credentials to say because you were formerly in the chambers, then every other thing is forgiven?
You know that given what you have now, sorry, Jimmy, Nigerians have very, very high expectations of government this time around.
Yes.
You don't think this process is useful?
You know, the subjective factor in all of that calculation is the president, Buhari. And if you look at the president, from my own perspective, yeah, he is like somebody that is really struggling to make a point. But he's constrained by very narrow considerations, and then he just can't come out of it. In 2015, I remember while we were waiting for him to announce the ministerial list, he was throwing up that line that, look, when governors pick their commissioners, nobody bothers them. So if I want to pick my ministers, nobody should bother them. In the end, after waiting for 6 months, he came with some kind of mediocre team, and then it's what we have been stranded with for this long. And then this time around, I also remember that he threw the line up that he was under pressure. Under pressure from which quarter? So we were thinking that he was going to resist all of this pressure and try, since this is going to be his last term in office, to professionalize government, professionalize governance, bring the key persons, and let's get things.
Let me take you from there and take you to Abuja. So Dr. Madi, the president has said he was going to pick those who he knows, who he can at least trust to deliver on what he has promised Nigerians, perhaps the policy documents of the party in consideration and context here. But you're all experts in your own field. From what you've seen, at least you know some of these men, at what point do we give the president the benefit of the doubt, knowing that, look, he knows he has to deliver? There's that talk about getting Nigerians out of poverty. Figures have been placed against all of those. He knows he needs to deliver at this point. And set agenda for us and for them, if you will. What do you look forward to seeing? And do you think that these will be met?
Well, first, let me start by saying that it's all right, perfectly right for the president to insist that he's going to appoint people he knows. I think that's even the right way to go. In the past, under PDP and S, before even up to now, you just ask state party leadership, they send you somebody, don't even know the person. And so there's no guarantee that you would, invariably, they will perform. Or you don't even know them. So the president should choose those you know. And all over the world, presidents choose the people they know. But the point is, who do you know? That's what matters. What metric are you using? I think the way we are today, our crisis of development, crisis of even nationality, is critical that the president's team should be based on some kind of fierce commitment to performance in many ways. We are fighting a war against corruption. And therefore, the president has said, look, I'm going to continue this war. Now, the symbolism of those you appoint. Somebody has made a joke that this is probably gotten from EFCC prosecution list, people who are there. And of course, the point therefore is that we know from the literature of corruption that corruption is what we call in economics collective action problem. That means people are corrupt because they think that others are corrupt and they think that others expect them to be corrupt. So at the level of appointment at the highest level of government, you use it to signal anti-corruption. The second thing I think that will happen here is that the president is also very worried about poverty, rising poverty. He spoke passionately about the fact that in spite of his commitment, people are getting poorer and it pains him. The vice president talks about corruption and it pains him. So you expect that you will see people who come with a mixture of skills, analytical skills, implementation skills, perspectives. People who have probably written, we don't have to be academical, but people who have written something, policy papers, made suggestions around policy. Because essentially, governance will be triggered by policy. Now, my friend Emeka says, look, let's focus on the bureaucracy of policy, the ministries. But the irony here is that we don't seem to have our civil service. I was a member of the Presidential Committee on Reform of Public Service, and I can tell you for free that our public service is not a knowledge service. So the motivations, the structures, the incentives, and the disincentives in this public service does not allow for a minister who is maybe a dumb minister to be led by hand into delivery or to be drip fed by policy wonks in the ministries who is doubtful we have that. So our condition requires that we have ministers who themselves will be innovators, who themselves will be change makers, who will come to the ministry and probably energize that place and lead out of the box. We don't have that. Now, if you look at the staffers, the critical driver of presidential governance in the world is the presidential staffers. The first-line staffers, you talk about the aides, chief of staff, special advisors. And what happens is that they design the policies that ministers, implement. And they're the key people who define the character of government. So far, the president has not appointed his aides. We know he has appointed the chief of staff, but we've not seen a couple of domestic, if you like, or technical aides like photographers and all that. And of course, maybe a few media people. Those who run the bureau, those who advisory capacity in terms of energy, in terms of center development, innovation, in terms of national unity. You see, the critical issue, I disagree with Emeka slightly. In other countries, Japan, elsewhere, developed countries, we're talking about innovation society, innovation economy. So science and tech should be frontline. In Nigeria today, that faces extra threat of dissolution, I think even Ministry of Defense becomes key, security becomes key. So the critical point, therefore, for me is the president's appointment is typical of the way he has appointed before, people he knows. And the metric for the people I know are people, loyalty perhaps count, those recommended by people I know. And by the way, no president knows everything. Presidents always rely on the immediate aides, the so-called cabal, the so-called kitchen cabinet. They are always important. And they're the ones who actually recruit the team. That's how it works. But if those staffers are not in themselves, thinking in terms of transformation, thinking in terms of leading society to a new beginning, then they're going to pick people who maybe they knew when they were 20 years old in Oxford, Cambridge, and elsewhere. And those people perhaps are no longer fashionable or ideas people. So Dr. the tragedy we are in here is...
Let me ask Dr. Okego. I know he would want to react to some of the things that you have said. Dr. Okego, he talked about transformation. Let me talk to that aspect of our economy, our national life that you are interested in, agriculture. What kind of transformation are you expecting within the shortest possible time?
Thank you very much. I don't like the word agriculture. I am more comfortable with the word food security because that is the first line of security, as against my friend and brother Sam, who says it's defense. The first line of nation, what is creating this disintegration or the implosion, as it were, is that people are hungry and we are not food secure. Okay? So the first line of security is food security. The second now will be job security. The third will be housing security. The fourth will be health security. So in taking it all together, maybe we'll talk about national security as your agriculture. Okay? He's talked about the president choosing people that he knows. Yes, I agree. But I also think that there are some other things that we must also take into context. You have the APC losing a lot of his ground, as it were. I think in also this choice of persons, I think they took that into consideration too. The throw of Emeka Nwajuba, who is a very bright person, very, very bright. I have a lot of respect for him, for his capacities. Somebody like Sharon Ikazo, Uche Oga, who's done well, in the upstream of the oil industry. The two of them would put some political injection into the APC in the Southeast, no doubt at all. Probably too for Akpabio, for whatever people think about him. So in also making these choices, I think they're looking at capacity, they're also looking at political and technical capacity. You cannot wish it away. Akpabio carries some political weight of sorts, if you may. But I think we must, in all this, put our nation first. And in putting our nation first, this is where now the policy come in. Your policy program, plan of action must kick in. And like I said, and I'm still saying, you see, no matter how much you want to have a minister who is technically competent, who is politically suave, who has all it takes, who have all the right connections, he must work with a team. What he is in that ministry is the head of ministry. He is not the chief accounting officer. Ministries run under directorates. And I'll tell you something that a lot of us also miss out when we're having national discourse. A lot of the ministries right now are just, most of them are administrators and regulators. Okay? So in all this, where are we bringing in the subnationals? Right? I haven't seen any program, any policy that government has now done that is now bringing to the fore, the exclusive and concurrent list, where this is going to now be fitting in, which is why I'm saying to you that probably what is most important for us to start interrogating now is not the man the president trusts, but it is a man that understands that it is just not all about the political gerrymandering. It's not all about, being technically competent. We now have a very huge problem in our hands. We have over 100 million persons who are living below the breadline. And what can we be able to do to be able to rein this in? I'm going this long route so that we can begin to really focus on what the main issues are. I can tell you that this screening is fait accompli. I don't see any of them dropping out. I see more of them coming to take this bow and go. I don't see anybody being able to even have the capacity in the Senate to interrogate what is this I've done in the past, because there's no such document. When the Senate president was making an announcement and reading out the names, the only document I remember, and I stand to be corrected, that he announced that the members were going to be given were their CVs. And trust me, nobody puts his dark sides on his CV. Okay, nobody puts wrong things on the CV. I don't see where the civil society is part of this. I don't see where the public is part of this. I don't see where there's an opportunity for people to be able to make input into this screening. And
all right, Dr. Kego, we need to give Mr. Bodo that part of the opportunity to speak on this, but we have to thank you both for coming on this morning, Dr. Emeka Okego and Dr. Sam Amadi. Thank you, gentlemen, for talking to us today on this ministerial nominees and this screening. Let me bring it back to Mr. Godot. Having listened to the concluding parts of Dr. Kegu's comments there, yes, they're politicians. They have to play politics. But he also concerned about the balancing act. Yes, it also doesn't see anyone dropping out. But beyond them having the CVs, the SSS, they do a job on these kind of things. Is it that the job they've done wouldn't be sufficient to also say, well, at least so far, from our own perspective, one of the layers that they have to screen, go through before being chosen? Doesn't that count for anything?
Actually, that is where this administration is having a lot of problem, perception. Whereas they are in the forefront of fighting corruption, the perception out here is that they are not doing it. Because somebody will tell you that if the DSS actually does its job, that a lot of those that are on the list will be disqualified. You know, there is something trending in the social media where my own good friend too, Timi Presiva, was mentioned, and they started from the beginning, who he was, what it was, and everything, and then at this point now, being on the list. And so we can't say that the DSS, concerning Buhari picking a team, that the DSS does any good job.
So did you expect National Assembly to ask him questions based on some of these things trending?
They should, that is, if they really mean to do a good job. But as we've seen, they are not going to do any good job. That is the point we're making.
But is it up to DSS to enforce it? If they come up with intelligence, they're not the ones who enforce it.
They can't even enforce it. Take the case of Ibrahim Magu, for instance. He's still the acting chairman of EFCC. The DSS did report to the National Assembly on him on 2 occasions, or on all the occasions that he was presented for confirmation by the National Assembly. And then the National Assembly said, okay, we are actually staying with the DSS report. But the presidency thought otherwise, and then it became a stalemate. And till this moment, the man is still there in office.
It means that the security agencies can't do much more than submitting the intelligence report to the office of the president.
Exactly, because they don't have the power of enforcement. They only have the power under command from the executive that, okay, we want this. So if the police wants to arrest, it has to, a directive has to come. They don't have the power of enforcement, especially with the DSS. They will only give the background that this is what we have found about this person. And so the other agencies or the other levels of authority should not enforce all these reports about that kind of person.
We're down to today's screening exercise, which has been about 2 hours or thereabouts. And yes, the nominees have scaled through DSS. Now they're the National Assembly, the Senate. And people have said this is perhaps just some form of formality. Just bow and go, or answer a few questions. Tell us about yourself. Tell us about your goals in the next 5 years, and just move on. So the question is, do you think there should be a provision for disqualification at this stage? I mean, that's a conversation people have probably brought up a few times. Do you think there should be a provision for disqualification at this stage?
Yeah, that is what would be a very pleasant surprise, because if that happens, then the National Assembly would have redeemed itself in some ways. But we can't see that happening.
You don't believe
and
that?
And is the point. Yes, we can't see that happening, because when the leadership of the National Assembly was being chosen, you know, the thing that was going on, in the past dispensation, the last dispensation, there was so much division, there was no working together, so we're going to work together, and they made it look like the National Assembly was going to be a department of the presidency. And then it's beginning to manifest. And so if the National Assembly should actually want to be the National Assembly of this country, and they should ask questions, critical questions, and where they should differ from the presidency, they should do so. If they don't, perception is a big problem with this government. So however they want to fix it, it's not all Nigerians do not believe that the list we have now that is a perfect list, that is a list that can go with us. Yeah, and that is why the National Assembly is there, because the presidency would have done its own bit by saying that, okay, I have assembled this person. These will be the people that will form my team.
But all of this notwithstanding, I think they know that, look, once you get into those offices and those positions, if there are challenges there, the media will highlight all of these things. Nigerians will speak about these things. So yes, they're not unmindful of those things, are they?
It's so unfortunate. When we mention the media in this country, I don't really know where to place the media. You know, sometimes I face this embarrassment. Yes, you people, newspaper editors, journalists, you don't report about it. And I ask, have you ever taken time to do content analysis of media to know what has been left unreported about issues in this country? Everything has been so articulated, presented. But we have just some impervious authority, adamant. They just don't listen to what is there in the media. If they listen, of course, we will be talking of a different approach to governance. And so, yeah, the media will do its bit, because that is why it is the fourth estate. But the media does not have power of enforcement.
Yeah,
it only has power of pressure.
Yeah, but yes, the media have to hold the government at every level accountable to people.
Yes.
So ultimately, it still lies with the people.
Yes,
doesn't it?
Yes, the people of Nigeria. You talk about the people. Remember, we have not really been fired to that level when the people will really come and they become a critical factor in the process. But it's work in progress. Because
what do we need to do to get the people to that point? Because you remember the Occupy Nigeria movements, all of it was a build-up, and of course, much of it was informed by
and it doesn't have to be protest.
Not necessarily, but at least something. I mean, we've seen it happen in Ukraine, the Arab Springs, and all of that. What do we need to do as a people? Because people keep talking about, look, we can't continue like this.
Yes, and that is because maybe the Nigerian species is a special species, because I really do not know how to answer that question. Every other person is angling. You all know what happened about our Mumu don't do and all of that, how it ended. So you now say that everybody is a hustler, everybody is angling. You know, this bring back our guests and all of that. We also know how some of it ended. And so when you now say, okay, these are the people, these are the leaders, they are really driving us in a direction, then in the end, there is just going to be an anticlimax that, okay, I'm set to this, okay, you people can take off your... And nobody believes in any level of leadership in this country. And that's where we are.
But would you blame the people? Because people believe we've chosen people in government, for example. We've sort of handed over the power to them. So it's their responsibility to sort things out for us. We can just go to bed and sleep. And, there's this feeling also that people think the government has a monopoly of power. I mean, there's that mindset also. So would you blame the people for thinking that way?
No, I'm not going to blame the people, because every society, even democracy under Greece, when every adult is supposed to participate in the issues of state, there was still some level of organization. So you cannot talk of a mass movement without some kind of leadership. That is the truth. Look at the civil society, for instance. You will now say that since the death of Gani Fawahimi, there is nobody you can really point to anymore. And so it is all about trading. It's all about positioning, angling. And the people get frustrated. So who do we believe? Who do we follow? It's where we are now, because if you are not talking of a mob action, of course that is going to be complete anarchy. You can't manage that.
But if you said the people...
Okay, take the NLC for instance again. Okay. They approximate the aspirations of the people at best. But in recent development, what are we going to talk about? After so many grandstanding, posturing and all of that, Adam Oshomole now became the governor of Edo State. Then from being the governor, is there now at the topmost level of power, political leadership in this country. Then Issa Aremu also attempted to become the governor in Kwara State. So it's all about using whatever.
Anything wrong with aspiration?
No, aspiration is good. But what we're talking about is that when you get there, you should not forget, you should not depart from the main issue, which is...
Because I was wondering, because a certain Mr. Makinde can also aspire. So anything can happen.
No, aspiration is good, but you must not deviate. You must be prepared by those fundamental principles that you are known for, so that when you get the opportunity to participate in governance, then you should now represent that constituency that you have always been identified with.